Good morning, friends. Actually, I should say good evening. It's evening in the garden. It's not morning anymore. It's about 7 o'clock at night. I'm just out here watering my garden. And I want to do this video. I've had a lot of people ask a lot of questions on what I do in my garden to keep everything so nice and green and growing so well. And they've all asked for tips and tricks. So I figured I would just share some of the things that I do in my garden. Not necessarily what all the books say. I admit I tend to break all the rules when it comes to gardening, but it seems to work for me because everything is growing big and green, and everything's got flowers, and I've got peppers, peas growing. So I figured I would bring you along today, and we'll just go through a little walkthrough of what I do in my garden and what works in my garden, and maybe it will help some people that have got some questions and that are struggling with their garden. I just want to start off that I've been gardening for about 30 years now. I admit my first probably 5 years I struggled. I could not get anything to grow. The plants would come up, but I would not get any fruit, or I would not get any vegetables, and then everything would just kind of die off on me, and I couldn't figure out what was going on. So over the years, I have just tried different things until I figured out the ones that work for me. And the biggest thing I suggest is you gotta have good soil. If you have really bad soil, really sandy soil, or even some clay soil, you've got to add some stuff to it just to get it broke up, because if your soil is real hard, the roots on the plants they will not grow. They will get to a certain size, and then the roots can't spread anymore to allow the plant to keep growing. So what I've done over the years, we have chickens, as if you've seen in some of my videos. This is my compost bin. It's in the corner of my garden. We just have a couple of old fences here, and we just have a little board in front to hold it in. But this is my compost bin, and all year long I throw everything in my compost bin. You can see recently I've just thrown a bunch of eggshells in there, and then this is just pine shavings that we have in our chicken coop. I throw all of that in there. And chicken poo, I hate to say it, it is the best thing for your garden. So if you have chickens, take all of your bedding every time you clean your coops out. I raise baby chickens too, so all of my tubs in the house that have baby chickens, I throw all of that out here all the year long. I throw all of my eggshells in here. I throw all of my coffee grounds. Just pull the filter out. All of my coffee grounds. All of my kitchen scraps, onion tops, potato peels, anything you have, carrot peels, you can throw in here. Just don't throw any meat in. Any kind of vegetable scraps. We throw all of our leaves at the end of the year when the leaves the trees start to lose all of their leaves. We throw all of our leaves in here. We throw all of our grass clippings in here every time we mow our yard. I don't throw any weeds in here because you don't want weeds growing in your compost. And we simply take a rototiller. You can do it by hand. We've did it by hand for years, but I did find an easier way to do it. There is a video about 2 months ago that I put out that you can go back and watch, and it's Composting the Easy Way. It's a really short video, but you could go back and see how we till our compost. We just have a little mini rototiller that we use. And it tills the compost up, and it breaks, if there is any weed seeds in there, it'll break them all up so they don't come back and sprout. Now at the end of the year, I don't throw any of these plants in my compost. I throw all those in my trash can because you don't want all the seeds and stuff growing in there. And a bunch of these leaves are just way too big to break down and compost. And what I do is all year long, we add to our compost continuously. Now, if you don't have chickens and you don't have anything that you can add wood-wise, You can go to Lowe's or Home Depot and buy a large bag. They sell them, they're a really big bag. It's about, I don't know, 2 foot by 2 foot square. And they're pretty cheap. They're like $6 or $7. But it's called peat moss. Or it's peat. But you can add one of those bags, or even 2 of those bags if you have lots of garden beds you need to fill. You can take a couple of those bags. And then you can also buy like steer manure. And at my Home Depot, the steer manure bags, they're pretty reasonable. They're about $2 a bag. You could add like 2 of those to one of the bags of peat. And then you can add all of your garden scraps, all of your yard waste, all of your leaves, your grass clippings, and all your vegetable scraps out of the house, all your vegetable scraps out of the garden. You can add all that all year long. And what we do is in the spring, about a month before we're ready to plant, because we have winter here, and we usually can't plant until about the beginning of April. I can start to plant like the brassicas, like the cabbage and the kale and the peas. I can start all that stuff, and my lettuce. I can usually start that in April. I can't put my peppers and tomatoes in the ground until after our last frost, which is usually middle of May. It's usually around Mother's Day. But what we do is all winter long, we add to our compost, and then come springtime, about a month before we plant, we go in and we till our compost really well, and then we add it to our garden beds. And then I let it sit for a week or 2 before I go ahead and plant. And it's an easy way, because every year your garden beds, the soil levels in them are going to drop. You see how full these are right now? This is all going to drop, and it'll probably be about 2 to 3 inches lower than it is right now in about 3 months when gardening season is done. So each year I just go in and I add it to my garden beds, and it just tops off the garden beds, and it adds all the nutrients you need in your garden beds. Now, I also cheat a little bit. I don't like to buy a lot of fertilizer. So in the springtime, when we add our compost to our beds, I also take one of these bags. This is just Miracle-Gro garden soil. And I know a lot of people don't like Miracle-Gro, but I've tried other things, and I've tried fertilizers, and they just do not work for me. And this is just a 0.75 cubic foot bag, and I throw a half a bag of one of these into each of my garden beds. Now, it sounds like a lot. I think I've got 16 or 17 garden beds, but at the same time, it only takes me about 8 bags, maybe 10 sometimes, because I'll put them in my flower pots just to top off. And you don't have to add a whole lot. I just add about a half a bag. And my garden beds are 2.5 by 5 feet. So I add that compost, and plus I add a half a bag of Miracle-Gro to each bed. And that Miracle-Gro will fertilize your garden for 3 months. So you don't have to use any kind of fertilizer. You don't have to add anything to it. The only thing the plants will need is sunshine and water. Now, the other thing I do, like I said, I break all the rules. I plant my plants very, very close together. I used to plant my plants, like it said on the seed packet, where seeds need to be put 6 to 12 inches apart, and your rows need to be 18 inches apart, especially for like zucchini and squashes. But I do not do that. I plant my plants very close together. As you can see, this is my kale, which is doing fabulous. I plant all of my plants close together. Right here, just on this trellis alone where these peas are, there's an entire seed pack. I put the whole seed pack in one spot. I would rather have more plants than less plants that don't grow. And not everything's going to sprout out of your seed packs. I do the same thing with my beets. Now my beets, I do have to go in and thin them out because they don't have enough room. I plant them very close. I plant my cabbages very close. And the reason I plant everything very close is because I used to spread them out, and my plants would start to grow, and then they would get hot from the heat in the summertime. June, July, August, we average about 100 degrees here during the day, and we hardly have any rain usually. Right now it's been strange. We've had a lot of rain the last couple of months. But in the next month and two, we won't have any rain. It'll be hot, it'll be dry, and my plants tend to dry up. So I have found if I keep my soil moist and I plant my plants close together. Right here is a good example. This is a tomato bed. And like I said, this bed is only 2.5 by 5 feet wide. And there are 12 tomato plants. There's 6 on this side, and then 6 on the other side of the cattle panel. And that's a lot of plants in one little spot. And you can see they're only planted about 6 inches apart. But I have found that over time, as the plants start to grow and bush out, that it shades all the leaves, or it shades the roots of the plant, which holds the moisture in the soil, which helps your plants grow. And it also shades the roots. You don't want the roots sticking out, you don't want them exposed to the sun. But with all the plants planted up that close together, it shades the lower part of the plants, and it keeps that soil nice and moist. So that's my second breaking the rules, is I plant my plants very close together. Tomatoes, I do 6 inches apart. I do my peppers exactly the same way, and they grow just as well. And over here you can see this is zucchini plants. This is only 2 zucchini plants, but they are planted close together. They're only about 6 inches apart in this bed, and they shade each other. And as you can see in there, I'm starting to get some zucchini growing and some flowers. Now the ones in the pots, the most important thing is you've got to water them every single day when it starts to get hot. Even if you just come out and just give them a little sprinkle of water. You don't want those roots getting all hot and dry. Okay, now my third thing I do to break all the rules is, if you read every garden book out there, or watch garden videos, everybody says to water your garden in the morning. Well, I used to water my garden in the morning, and you'd give them a really, really nice watering, and by 10, 11 o'clock, it's 100 degrees out, and my plants are dry, falling over, and they're just not getting enough water, and they're dying from it. So I started watering at night. Like I said, it's about 7 o'clock at night. Right now our sun goes down 8:30, 9 o'clock. So I come out every night. I hand water. I do not use a sprayer. I do not use a sprinkler. I've tried sprinklers for years, and the plants do not get enough water. You're watering everything around except the plants. By hand watering, I make sure that every single plant is getting enough water. I can look at every plant as I walk through and water them and make sure there's nothing wrong, there's no disease. I've still got a lot of hail damage on these plants right here. But I can look at every plant and make sure they are doing all right. So it just kind of gives you an option to walk through by hand watering to check your plants every day. Or every day if you need to. Right now it's about in the 80s, and it was hot and sunny today, so I'm going to water every day right now. And you'll find if you water every day, you actually give them less water because they're still damp when you go to water them. But like I said, I water at night, and I water usually an hour or two right before the sun goes down. I usually wait until the sun starts to go down, so it's not shining on the plants. And then I will come out and I will give each plant a generous watering, just to make sure that everybody gets enough water. Some of my peppers are doing really well under here. A couple of them growing. But like I said, if you water in the morning, by 11 o'clock noon, your soil is going to be completely dry, and your poor plant is going to sit there and struggle in the heat of the sun every single day. and it's going to be thriving for water. It's going to be so thirsty and so hot that it's going to shrivel up and die on you before the next morning comes around and you water again. So they only get to enjoy that nice damp roots and damp soil and drink up that water for 3 or 4 hours if you water in the morning. If you water at night, I'm watering at 7 o'clock at night, they get to sit all night in the cooler temperatures at night, no sun beating down on them, and they get to drink up all that nice water and sit in that nice moist soil all night long. And if you didn't know, and I didn't know when I first started gardening, all your plants, they grow at night. They don't grow during the day. They don't grow when the sun is out. They wait until the sun goes down and then they grow. Have you ever noticed that you'll go to bed and you'll wake up and the next day your plants are an inch or two taller? Or if it's rained that night and you wake up and your plants are an inch or two taller? Well, it's because they got to sit with damp roots all night long and drink up all that water. But your plants grow at night, so if your plants are growing at night, wouldn't it be better to water your plants at night? And that was my theory. So for the last 20 years, I water my plants at night. And all of my dead, dried up plants that would not grow have now turned into nice, green, lush plants that all produce. I can fill my freezers. I can get a lot of canning done. It feeds us the whole winter time. So that is my theory. I know it's wrong. I know all the books say to water your garden in the morning. But I have learned that my biggest tip is to water your plants at night, because then they're nice and cool all night long while they're growing. And the other thing I wanted to talk about is things with like lettuce and spinach. If you're growing like leaf lettuce, you need to make sure that you keep picking that lettuce or it's going to go to seed on you. I always thought years ago when I started gardening that you had to plant your plants and then you had to wait for them to all be done and then pick your leaf lettuce. Well, it doesn't work that way. The more you pick your leaf lettuce, the more you pick your spinach. I just did a video last week on picking some spinach, and I'm getting ready to do a video on freezing that spinach. But if you keep that picked, it will keep growing and it will not go to seed on you in the heat of the summer. Now, spinach is kind of tricky because you might have to pick it every 3 or 4 days, but that's fine. Just pick it, put it in a bowl, set it in the fridge until you're ready to use it or until you're ready to get it all canned up. And I've got some peas over here. They are all flowering. And got nice big pea pods on them. Now these aren't snap peas that you would pick just to eat the whole pod. These are peas that you actually pick and then you don't eat the pods, you just eat the peas inside. I like to freeze peas. We use a lot of frozen peas and stuff. But I just wanted to give you a little tutorial of what I do. So biggest thing is you gotta have good soil. If you have bad clay soil, add some stuff to it. And the cheapest thing out there to add to it is a big bag of peat and some steer manure. They even sell at our Home Depot mushroom compost. You can add a bag of mushroom compost in there. It's usually only $1.98, the same as the steer manure. You just need to add some amendments. But if you have chickens or turkeys or ducks, add all of that bedding. Every time you clean your coop, add that into your compost pile, because chicken poo is the best thing to put on your garden. It is just natural manure, and don't worry about it being hot. Everybody says you gotta wait 6 months to put your chicken waste into your compost, and then you have to wait for 6 months for it to break down. Well, that's not true. I have put mine in, and I have put it in my garden beds the next week, and it has been just fine. And this year is a good example. I cleaned out my chicken coops about a week before we had tilled our compost pile, and so that was all fresh, hot They call it hot chicken manure. And I put it in my compost. I tilled it up. I added it to my beds. I added a half a bag of Miracle-Gro. And I started planting. And all of this stuff right here, all of the kale, the peas, everything were planted in that chicken compost. That was only a week old. Plus everything that had been sitting over the winter time. So, biggest thing is, you've got to have some good soil. If you've got nasty clay soil, you got to add some stuff to it to break it up. And if you're growing in ground and you're fighting weeds, for years before I had the beds that we had built. Now all these beds are all recycled wood that we had got. They didn't cost me anything except the couple cans of stain that I bought to stain the beds and some screws to screw them together. These were just some leftover boards that some people were throwing away. You can look on Craigslist. People are giving away all the time. Just leftover boards, leftover wood. You can make anything. And it won't cost you a whole lot. But if you're growing in ground and you're fighting weeds, I suggest, unless you have a huge garden and you're just a small backyard gardener, you can use things, you can grow anything in pots. I have lots of tomatoes growing in pots. I've grown peppers in pots. You can grow lettuce, you can grow cabbage, you can grow beans, you can grow anything. You can grow peas in pots as long as you put some kind of trellis on there. But you can grow anything in pots that you need to grow. So if you're fighting weeds in the ground, try growing in containers. And an easy container that you can use is the kiddie swimming pools. You can go out and buy those. They're really cheap. I've seen them at a dollar store before. I've seen them for $5 to $10 at Walmart. But they're pretty big, and all you got to do is just fill some peat in there, throw some little bit of Miracle-Gro in there, and make sure you drill some drain holes or pop some drain holes in the bottom because you don't want all the water sitting in there. But you can grow in those, and those work great. And all the weeds won't get in your garden. And weeds are like your number one killer of your plants. If there's weeds growing all over in your garden beds, they will suck up all the nutrients in the soil. They will take all the water away from your plants. And nothing's going to grow if you have a bunch of weeds in your garden. Because the weeds are going to grow and kill off your plants. See, my beans are trellising all the way up. They are now taller than I am. I'm about a little over 5 foot, and they're about 6 foot tall now, so they should start to flower anytime. But like I said, if you're fighting weeds in the ground and you have poor soil, get yourself some kiddie pools. You can get on Facebook Marketplace. People always have 55-gallon the plastic drums. You can cut those in half. You can use those as garden beds. You can do anything. People give pallets away all the time. You can take those, pick up the pallets. You can pull the wood apart and then just screw 4 pieces of wood together. And you don't have to have a lot of height on your garden bed. You can have short garden beds. Tomatoes need a little bit deeper, but at the same time, these boards on mine are only about 4.5 inches tall. And there's only 2 boards high, so I'm only 9 inches tall. But if you actually look at the soil, there's probably only 7 inches of soil there. So you don't need anything that's real deep. You can grow in Rubbermaid containers. You can grow in buckets. This tomato right here is just growing in an old pot that I had bought years ago. I had bought a tree in that. Last year at Home Depot, they had these on sale. I paid $15 a piece, and they are great. You could grow lettuce, you could grow cabbage. I've just got my tomatoes in them. And if you don't have tomato cages, don't worry about it. Get an old stick or an old broom handle and just use that and tie the plant to it. You can use a zip tie or even a piece of yarn to tie your plants up. But you can grow in any kind of container if you're struggling. These are my indigo pear tomatoes, and these are growing nicely right now. And these are just in these pots, and these pots aren't real tall. They're only about 15 inches tall. But like I said, if you're struggling with weeds, try growing in containers. And if you don't have a whole lot of money, try the kiddie pools. The kiddie pools are very, very cheap, and you can plant a lot in a kiddie pool. Believe me, I did it for years before I had my garden beds. So I hope some of these questions help you out that I was trying to answer for everybody. Now, if you have any more questions and would like me to answer any more questions for you, feel free to leave them in the comments section below, and I can always make another video, or I can answer you directly, and I can try to help you out and see if maybe what I'm doing will work for you, or give you any tips on what would work better. So I've been doing this for a while, and this is just what I have done that helps me. And I know a lot of it is breaking the rules of planting the plants too close. And like over here on my bean trellises, your beans will tell you to plant, these are pole beans, your beans will tell you to plant, I think, one bean every inch or something. It tells you. Well, this bed is 5 feet long. I took an entire pack of Kentucky Wonder pole beans and put it in this bed, and that trellis is only about 4.5 inches long, or about 4.5 feet long. It's not the length of the bed. These are cattle panel trellises. You can pick these up from Tractor Supply for about $30 a piece, and they work great for growing cucumbers and beans. Right here is my butternut squash, and it is now starting to trellis. And all you got to do is come out every day and just kind of wrap the new growth around it, and it will keep going up. And just keep pushing the plants. But you can grow beans, you can grow peas, you can grow anything that will climb up a trellis on these cattle panel trellises. And like I said, these were $30 a piece at Tractor Supply. You can usually get them at any kind of feed store out there. And we just simply put them in with a T-post, which you can also buy from a hardware store. You just put one T-post in, and then we have these neat little, they're made for cattle panels. They're made to latch them on. But if you don't have these, don't worry about it. Just use a zip tie, because last year I had zip ties on mine, and I went ahead and picked these up this year and changed them over. But you can just zip tie it to it. You simply put this in the ground, so it's in the ground about a foot, so it's nice and sturdy. And then you put your cattle panel on either side, and then you just zip tie it or connect it on there. And then you have a great way for your plants to grow and trellis. But like I said with the beans say to plant an inch apart. Well, I don't plant an inch apart. I planted an entire pack of beans there. And there's a reason I do that. Because green beans are my favorite thing, and my husband's favorite thing, that we can every year. We eat green beans probably twice a week when I cook dinner. And this whole winter and all fall and all early spring, we have been eating the green beans. And sadly to say, I just ran out of green beans. We had green beans 2 nights ago, and that was my last jar. So I have green beans growing everywhere, and that is just the thing that we like to grow. But by growing them nice and thick down here in the roots stay nice and moist, and they're shaded from the sun. And you can see that the growth is so thick that the sun can't hit those roots down there. So it keeps them nice and moist. Even in the heat of the day, those roots are not going to get hot, and that's what causes your plants to fall over and dry and die up and not flower. Or if you've had flowers and the flowers fall off, it's just because the plant is stressed out, and it's usually due to it's too hot or they're not getting enough water. So just try planting your plants a little bit closer. And they got to be in some good loose soil. You can't grow in really, really hard soil, because the roots have got to be able to spread. And the roots just cannot spread if you have really, really hard soil. So if you've got really hard soil, try growing in some garden beds. These are some garden bags. They're actually like a potato bag. And you can unzip this, or it's just Velcro. And you can actually look in there. I don't want to pull it completely open because the soil might fall out. But that just unvelcros, and then you can see your potatoes growing. But these they're just like a felt bag. And you can pick these up online. I've seen them on Amazon. And I've seen them everywhere. I've seen them at Home Depot too. But I think I got 6 of those. And they're pretty good size. But you can get 6 of them for like $15. But you can always grow in those kind of bags too. And they do get a little moldy down on the bottom over the years. And these are only about 2 years old now. But that's alright because the soil inside is not actually moldy. It's just the bag around the outside. But you can grow in those. So I hope this video helps some people that were asking some questions and struggling with their plants. And this is just what I do. It's not what everybody does, but it just happens to be what works for me. And I hope by letting you in on what I do will maybe help you grow your garden big and healthy, and you'll get lots of plants growing. Over here I've got some sugar rush peach peppers growing, and that is exciting. I have never tried them. I heard they're kind of a sweet, spicy pepper. And here's some Anaheim peppers growing. Oh, too many leaves in there. There we go. There's some Anaheims growing. But like I said, if you have any more questions, and you can always email me. My email is in my About page. There's some jalapenos growing. But you can always email me, or you can leave it in the comments section below, and I can always make another video, or I'll try to help you as much as I can and try to answer your questions. And I am in Colorado, Zone 5B. We have very, very hot, dry summers and very, very cold winters. And we have an average of about 5 months every year of a growing season before it starts to frost on us. Our first frost date is, or our last frost date is usually in May. About the middle of May, it starts to warm up and we can start planting. But then by October, the end of October, usually right around Halloween, we start to get frost again. So we don't have a long growing season. So I have tried to do everything I can to make my plants grow the biggest and the fastest they can. Some strawberries that are starting to grow. But I have tried to do everything I can to get my plants to grow in that short amount of time that I have. And it seems to be working. Parsley is looking really good. Here's a bunch. Basil is doing very well. And these are a bush wax bean, yellow wax bean. And they are doing very well. It said they were a bush variety, but they are growing up the trellis. So even a bush bean will grow on a pole or on a cattle panel. They will still climb. So I'm excited about that. And they are really tall. They are also about 6 feet tall. The onions are still, they fell over in the hailstorm. But everything that was damaged by our hailstorms, it seems to be coming back now. Still got some holes in some leaves, but everything is growing real good. But I just want to thank everybody today for following along, watching this video. And I hope these little tips that I have helped you out. But I'm going to head inside and get this video uploaded for you. It is getting really windy out here. I don't know if you can hear that. And it is starting to get dark out here. I've been talking too long. So I hope everybody has a great weekend. And I hope your gardens grow big, healthy, and green. And I hope these tips helped you out. So thank you again, everyone, for following along with me today. And I hope you enjoyed this video. If you do, please hit the thumbs up and the like button. And if you're new, I hope you subscribe and come back. I'll be doing some more garden videos and been doing a lot of cooking videos lately. I'm going to have some more videos of the baby chickens coming up, and the mama, she's still taking care of those babies. Sadie is a really, really good mama chicken. She's guarding those babies with her life. So, okay, guys, I got to get off here. We're losing light. I just want to say thank you. Everybody have a great weekend. Thank you for watching, and God bless you all.